Hi, I'm Dr. Robin West. I'm a board-certified orthopedic and sports medicine surgeon. Welcome to Blueprint of an Athlete, where science meets sports. Today, I'm so thrilled to be joined by Erin Hanson, who's the co-founder and CEO of Guardian Sports, a company redefining how we protect athletes across every level of play. After owning and operating a material science and technology company for over 25 years, Erin and her husband launched Guardian in 2011 with a goal to innovate safer sports equipment. From the Guardian cap, the NFL-mandated soft-shell helmet cover, now used by over 500,000 athletes, to the Pearl Lacrosse ball, the official ball of the NCAA, PLL, and MCLA, Guardian has proven that smart design and science-backed testing can change the game. The Guardian cap was the winner of the first NFL's Head Health Tech Challenge in 2000. And since then, Guardian has continued to evolve, launching the Guardian Zenith Loop, Offshock's chin strap, and the Guardian Infill, all designed to improve safety, sustainability, and performance across multiple sports. So, Erin, welcome to Blueprint of an Athlete.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So happy to have you. Erin, let's start with, take us back to 2011 and what inspired you and Lee to start Guardian Sports.
Yeah, we started a year before that. So about 2011 is when the company started. But 2011 is when Lee had been approached by a gentleman on the Hanson Group, the material science side, to solve the problem of a football helmet. Scientists who approached us wanted to flex the exterior shell, kind of a precursor to the Vice's helmet. And he was working with Lee on some coatings development. And so Lee solved that problem, and the three of us went to Park Avenue in New York to present it. There was a concussion symposium, and presented it and thought, wow, we're going to reduce a heck of a lot of the impact off of these players' heads. And we were told that the revenue for football comes from television, and if you can't hear that you're not going to engage your audience. So I was suitably distressed by that comment. We had a son at the same time who was starting to play football. So after 4 daughters, we had a son who said, hey, I really want to play football. And that was at the same time that we were being told that we could advance safety in football, but not by much. And so we came away from that meeting more determined than ever that we were going to find a solution.
So interesting. So how does your experience in material science and also as a mother translate into designing these products for athlete safety and protection?
Right. So the material science side, Lee's a chemical engineer by trade. I was a middle school math teacher. Yeah, he was a crazy inventor, and, I was by his side for a lot of the projects that we did. But I think the mother part probably figured in a little bit more on my side. I think that as a mom, you're automatically programmed to tell your son, don't hit your head, be careful, watch where you're going. And then to suddenly have a son who says, hey, mom, I want to play a collision sport. And guess what? I'm going to be hitting my head. A high school player can hit heads 1,000 hits in one season within a 3-month period. And so I think as a mom, I wanted to make sure he was playing the safest way he could. I was just very concerned about his brain health. And so with Lee, we were able to retrofit every helmet out there. We said, hey, if changing the entire helmet is too much of a paradigm shift, why don't we just look at practice? Who the heck cares about practice? That's where the majority of these hits are going to occur anyway. And so we'll retrofit every helmet out there as inexpensively as we can. And so we said we want it to be lightweight. We want it to be inexpensive. We want it to be one size fits all and affordable. That's how we started out with the cap. And so we went to work designing, and it took us about 2 years before we sold the first one. So about 2 years of development, and we sold our first cap in 2012.
And so what was your guiding mission at the start, and how has that evolved as Guardian Sports has grown, or has that stayed the same?
I think the mission started out as, how can we encourage players to play the sports they love in a better way, a safer, healthier way? We didn't want to make too drastic of a change. We knew that wouldn't be welcomed. As it was the first Guardian cap, it looked ridiculous. Players said, I don't want that thing on my head. It was a tough sell. But the mission for Guardian, we state that the mission is to improve products to give athletes what we feel they deserve. So everything involves improvements of both protection and performance.
How has the cap evolved over these early prototypes? It sounds like, initially you probably had trouble selling it, and I'm interested, how has that changed and how has that evolved?
We are self-funded, family-owned company, and so I will tell you that once we put 2 years into testing, we were reticent to change much because once you start with a new prototype, you start from ground zero.
Mhm.
And so that was not going to be affordable. So we were able to make tweaks along the way that made it last longer for players. But the initial one was getting such good results in labs that we were reticent to change much. So the first one had fixed straps because everyone was interested in linear impact. Once science went more into rotational, we changed those straps to be elastic so that there was more movement and a little bit more play there. We had snaps, and the snaps, when those face mask to face mask hits, they were breaking the snaps. So we put a rubber flap over the snaps. So really small changes, honestly, along the way. And then this past season, we introduced our 2.0, which is a smooth design. So we smoothed out the sides so that it looks more like a traditional helmet instead of that waffle pattern. So I would say that's probably the biggest change we've made in the last, 15 years?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how different it looks. Just
Yeah.
showing that 2.0. It
But
does look more
it's
like a helmet.
worked all along, Robin. What we've heard the feedback from teams and lab testing is showing 10%, 20%, 30% reduction in impact at different speeds. We didn't want to change that. We wanted to stick with what we knew was working.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because people are so focused on the look of things too, right? And so even though it's impacting their athlete safety, but if it doesn't look cool or look good or looks funny or awkward, that's probably the toughest challenge.
It was, and we kept saying, "Well, there's no mirrors in practice." But the
Right.
players care. They care deeply, and then as NIL evolved, now these players are their own business, right? And so they all have their own branding and their own social media channels, and they do care what they look like at all times. And
They
so
do.
that's why we really went out on a limb and changed the design a little bit. That also the design changes also came when the NFL decided to allow it in games, which we never set out to do. And so this past year, what they've done is they've put like a penny cap on top to mimic what the shell design looks like. And they did not put the 2.0 on fields this year. It's on NCAA fields. I think we've got 90 something percent of the Power Four teams in them, but the NFL needed to do testing and have field data. And so we heard back last week that the new design tests even better than the last. So fingers crossed it'll be voted in for next year.
That's great. And it's currently mandated for practice, is that correct? But
Yes.
not for
Yeah.
games. It's
Yeah,
optional.
they started in 2022. I think it was O-line, D-line, tight ends, and linebackers. And then when they reported a more than 50% reduction in concussion, they expanded the next year and added running backs and a couple other positions. This past year, or right now, in any contact practice, it's all players except quarterbacks, kickers, and I think that's it. I think it's quarterback, kickers, and maybe punters or something like that.
For
It's
practice.
for practice, and then it's allowable in games.
Gotcha. And how many, NFL players are wearing it in games now?
Well, we had 11 until this weekend. I haven't gotten the latest count yet. Our team is still going through game footage from this past weekend. I know there were 3 Dolphins players wearing them in games this
Okay.
past weekend, so I don't know. So 11 until this past weekend, so we'll see.
So wait, we're talking about the NFL, but, I just wanted to go back to that NFL first head health tech challenge, that mouthful that you guys won, and that was in 2017. I think that was their first challenge, and you won
Right.
that first time. And so that's obviously a major validation moment for you. How did that recognition impact your progression as a company?
I think it gave us a national spotlight. You know, it's very difficult. It was easier for us to reach those NCAA teams. Everyone knows who those are. It's hard to reach all the youth programs. You know, there's not like a generalized listing of youth programs. So I think it put a spotlight on us that really helped us reach those young players. You know, we always had a passion for that, helping that young developing brain. It's just a little bit harder to find them. So I think it gave us the validation that we needed, and especially when they started releasing data and results.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, how did it feel? to have that data independently tested by the NFL and endorsed by them. I'm sure that also had an effect.
Yeah, I think it's difficult as a company because you're willing to pay for your testing. You're willing to pay for independent testing, but everybody still has that bent of, where are the peer-reviewed published papers? And you don't just get those. Somebody has to take the initiative to want to do that kind of testing on your product. And
Right.
so it takes a long time to get validation. And when the NFL comes forward and says, hey, we're going to invest heavily in player safety, we're hearing from our guys who are coming up from the, Alabama, Tennessee, Clemson, Georgia. These guys have all seen a huge difference wearing your product. It's time for us to put you on the radar and see if what they're feeling, has data behind it.
Yeah, and that independent testing really stands out. I mean, I know that when we look at products in the operating room, if a company tests their own product, it means one thing, right? But if somebody else tests their product, it means a lot more. So I can
Exactly.
I can imagine that validation was really big kickstart.
Yeah.
So obviously you didn't stop at football. I'd love to hear more about the Pearl lacrosse ball. And my my daughter plays at Florida State, so she plays. But when I was reading about your Pearl lacrosse ball, and it's the only U.S. made greaseless ball that
Yeah.
became the official choice for Major League Lacrosse, and so I'd
Uh-huh.
love to hear about it. And
Yep, this is our pearl ball. Hang on, I got info on it. That's our pearl ball. We've got this new optic yellow that's super, super cool. We started attending so many different safety meetings and standard meetings and manufacturer meetings, and we were hearing about a lot of injuries in lacrosse, especially girls lacrosse because they're not wearing headgear. At the same time, our son was a goalie at Georgia Tech. And so when your child is being hit with a projectile at 90 something miles an hour and he split his chin and he split his chin and he split his chin, said, Jake, you got to stop stopping the ball with your helmet, first of all. But, we looked at the ball and looked at the standard for the ball, and the hardness, the compression deflection was 110 to 210 hardness. And every ball we tested, Robin, was 220, 230, 260. It was way out of spec. And we said, I don't understand how these are being played with. Well, the spec calls for it to be in spec at the time of manufacture only, not at time of purchase or play. There's two facilities, manufacturing facilities in Asia that are making all of the balls for all of the different companies. And, they might be in spec when they're made in Asia, but by the time you throw them on a boat and they sail in the heat for a couple months and they're in a container and they're being stored, and by the time they reach the consumer, that rubber ages. So it's kind of like your car tires. They just got harder and brittle with time. And so we said, well, then why in the heck are we making them out of rubber? And they said, well, that's what they've always been made out of. It's like, well, let's make them out of something different.
yeah,
So Lee went to the lab and created a urethane ball. And the beauty of the ball is that, it fills our mission of improving performance and safety because it's not greasing. Those plasticizers aren't leaching out of the ball and causing them to be slick. They come out of the stick consistently. So the players care about that consistency. We care about the safety. And so that spec was 110 to 210. And when we proved we could keep it within that spec at the low end, the standard setting organization was willing to lower that spec. So it's now 110 to 150. So I'm really proud of getting that changed, but we're consistently making them at about the 130 hardness. So it's a softer ball, but the players can't tell the difference. Same circumference, same weight, just a better feel. It's just a grippier feel.
mm-hmm.
So you can bury it in the snow. You can leave it. We've left them on rooftops for years. We've had them in water. We've done whatever we had to do to prove that they don't grease. And I think this is what, maybe year 8 or 9, and players are finally saying, man, this thing's never changed.
That's
They never
amazing.
change.
That's
They're awesome.
amazing.
So unless you lose it, it's gonna stick around for a long time. So it's the official ball of NCAA tournament play, PLL, MCLA, IWLCA, all of those. But we make them right here in Atlanta. So it's fun seeing them come hot off the line.
That is really cool.
Isn't that fun?
So amazing.
Yeah, proud of that one.
Yeah, and then you have other products too, and I have been learning more about them. But the bio-based turf infill as well as a Guardian Zenith loop, and I'd love for you to
Yeah, I'll show
share
you.
that
Hang
as
on, let
well.
me get the info.
And the Guardian loop was designed really for the helmetless or the non-helmeted sports,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah, yeah,
football,
yeah, yeah. So the
soccer,
infill
people
looks
talking.
like this. It's just the pellets that go into the field, into the turf.
Yep.
And so the difference between ours, there was a lot of data coming out, not data, but a lot of concern coming out. There was a cluster of cancers that were coming out of Washington State soccer goalies, female soccer goalies, that they were all being diagnosed with some form of cancer. And they were trying to decide what was causing this cluster effect. And some people were pointing toward the rubber pellets that were being used for infill because those pellets, you've seen them spray up in the NFL games. Yeah, they're everywhere and they're sharp and they're ground up car tires. Somebody somewhere said, hey, people are changing their tires every few years and our landfills are getting full. So why don't we grind those up and put them on kids' playing fields?
Place
Which
for them.
yeah. So, they're putting them down with respirators and hazmat suits on, and then our kids are playing on them a couple hours later and eating orange slices. So we looked at that and said, there's got to be a better way to do this. So Lee went to the lab, and ours is corn and soy based. It's USDA certified. He puffed it with air because it's engineered. You can do whatever you want with it, right? So he puffed it with air to have some impact reduction. He put a reflectant into it. So it's keeping the fields about 28 degrees cooler, which is huge in Georgia, you know,
Deal.
Nevada,
Yeah.
Florida. So it keeps the field cooler and it's real smooth. So we also we improve performance because we actually it's real puffy. They're like little pillows, which is super cool. But we run it through 6 different die cuts so that there's a locking together so that the players get a little bit more kickoff with speed and things. And so the NFL's testing that now in several of their fields.
Hmm. And
So
so where is it being used right now, and how long has it been out?
I am the wrong one to ask about infill. Alex handles our whole infill division. I know that it's mandated in New York City public schools. There's clusters where it's already been mandated for fields. I know that we're on Fresno State. We were really proud of that. There was another game that was using a different infill. I think it was the Colorado game where it had rained and so you had clumps of all this brown infill laying around.
I remember
And
it.
ours is engineered to be the specific gravity, it's heavier than water. So when you water the field, it doesn't wash away, it doesn't clump up, any of that. With the black, you can see it on all the white
Yeah.
lines and things like that. So we're on Fresno State's field, and man, that thing looked fantastic on television. So it was bright green and it
Oh,
looked really good. I was
that's
really
awesome.
proud of that one.
Yeah, that's really
We're
cool.
working on that. That one's up and coming. We also have a new pad for underneath the turf that it's really cool. So the water can actually drain through it. So it has an evaporative cooling effect. And instead of right now they're putting down the pad underneath in puzzle pieces. When it heats and cools it, you either have it buckling or you have some divots in there. Where this it comes in a I think it's a 90-foot roll and it goes on the same equipment that rolls out the turf, rolls out this one continuous pad. So, and it's made from completely recycled materials and it's recyclable. I'm really excited about that one. That one's new. So that one we partnered with AstroTurf. So it's the AstroPad.
Branching out into so many things, and
I
the
know.
garden,
Well,
the
it's
loop. How
fun.
about the Zenith
So the
loop?
loop. Okay.
Yeah.
So the loop, it's not Zenith anymore. Zenith got sold.
Okay.
So we now partnered with Shut.
Okay.
So the new one is coming out. Let's see, it launches November 1st.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So coming up.
Do you have a
So
picture or
yeah.
do you have a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
prototype there?
Yeah, that's our loop.
Wow.
So it's really cool. Comes all the way down in the back. It's got like this occipital hinge, so it's real comfortable. So we left it blank on the front so that teams can logo because flag teams really like to logo up. So that'll be good for soccer, volleyball, basketball, any sport that has incidental contact that they don't wear helmets for. So girls lacrosse would be great.
Great. Yeah, that's terrific. So have
They
you
can
got
wear they can
feedback?
wear
Have you had people wearing it now, and how long has it
Oh,
been
yeah.
out?
So our loop was originally partnered with Zenith. That one's been on the field for 2 years.
Okay.
So that's a big flag product. We've had a lot of cheerleading interest, believe it or not. But this is now this new one we just made some improvements to it. We made it a little more comfortable and extended the back down so it sits down a little bit better. But the flag players don't like full coverage because they're not getting hit here, they're bumping. And
Yeah.
so they can wear their dreads and their ponytails and sport whatever
Terrific.
hairstyle they like and still have a little bit more protection on the field.
And are they size? Are they Velcroed? How do you fit them?
It just slips on like a headband.
And so it's stretchy. Is it the
Yeah,
same
it's just
one size
stretchy.
fits
Yep.
all, or is
Yep.
it
Yeah, I think we have 3 sizes. I think
Okay.
it's maybe small, medium, and large, extra
But
large.
it's
Maybe
got
it's
a
2 sizes. Well, this one's medium, so we must have small, medium, large.
yeah, cool. So, are there common philosophies or testing processes that you go through with all these products?
Yeah, we've drop testing that we'll do preliminary testing on. We're working on a new baseball product, so we've got a cannon firing baseballs at a head. It sounds like gunshot every time Lee's back there testing things. So we have labs and scientists. The Hanson Group has, industrial engineers, mechanical engineers, civil engineers. They have the whole engineering squad in the lab and all the testing equipment. So it's kind of neat the way our offices are set up. We have the Hanson offices on one side, Guardian on the other, and we've got manufacturing and warehouse facility in between. So Lee just rides back and forth all day long.
That's great.
Yeah.
You can test on one side and
Yep.
build and design.
Yep. Yep.
So I've heard you often say that safety and performance kind of go hand in hand. How do you communicate that to athletes and coaches who may see protection as really limiting performance?
Right. So for the cap, for sure. I mean, that's one thing Kirby Smart said to us early on at University of Georgia. He said, I can't afford to lose my 5-star recruit on I won't use the language he used, on a silly old
Yeah.
drill on a Wednesday afternoon. So, he said, I need my players available to me. And he said, I need a full roster on game day. And I don't want to lose guys during the week on, injuries that could be avoided. And I know with the cap, people look at the helmet to helmet aspect of it, but honestly, we hear a lot, 2 hands getting smashed between helmets. So a lot less hand injury. It's soft tissue. It's all of those things. It's helmet to rib and helmet to thigh and helmet to all of those body parts and helmet to ground. So the feedback that we get from players, quite honestly, is just, I'm practicing without a headache. I go to class and my head's not feeling fuzzy. I just feel better when it's on. And the next thing I really want to go into testing wise is what that sound and vibrational frequency dampening is doing for these guys, because we're hearing a lot about how much better they're feeling. And so I really want to start testing that next.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to test that auditory, the sound also that they hear. I mean, we
Sure.
we hear it, right? You watch games on TV and you hear the sound and you're on the sideline.
Yeah.
It's incredibly loud. And so
Yeah.
how does that change from the player's perspective as well? Not just
Right.
the head impact. So what have been your biggest barriers to adoption for your variety of products? Is it particularly in the youth and the high school level? Is it cost? Is it the look of the things? Or what have you found has been the
A
biggest barrier?
little of Yeah, a little of all of the above. I think that we have tried to make it as affordable as possible. Our average, our retail selling price is a little bit higher for one-offs because, you have to be higher if you're going to be in retail and be available for that last minute purchase. Team sales, our average selling price is $53 this year. And so, for a youth parent, that thing's going to last 4 or 5 years. So you're looking at 10 or $12 a year for that extra protection for their head. So I think price can be a barrier until they understand it does last a little bit longer and it is a beneficial piece of equipment. I think that proving yourself over time, I mean, it does. It takes time to pay your dues. People want to see that feedback from labs like BioCore that test for the NFL. And they do want to see the research and the data that comes out. So that takes time. The biggest barrier we have right now, quite honestly, is from the major helmet manufacturer who pushes back because they can. And so that's been our hardest. That they don't push back at the NFL and the NCAA level, but it's easy to push back on the high school and youth program who doesn't have the NCAA and the NFL to go to bat for them. And we're competing for sales dollars. And if they're in the position and the way that the system is set up, they can do that. They're going to do that. So it's an unfortunate reality that we're dealing with.
Yeah, I'm sure it's also player feedback, right? It's players who are telling you that they don't have the headaches, they feel better, they
Yeah.
feel more rejuvenated or better after practice, and it's probably them telling their friends like, "Hey, I tried this, and this is
Yeah.
cool." So I bet you it's word
Yeah.
of mouth a lot of times too.
And quite honestly, it's the college coaches who are winning. And when the college coaches are winning, those coaches switch around a lot. They are coaching here and then the next year they raise up to the next level and they go to the next team and the next team and the next. And they're like, hey, you know what really worked for us? Our injury rates went way down. So this is one tool in the tool belt that we're going to add this year. And then when the high school coaches go to these college practices, they say, "Hey, what the heck do you have on your players' heads?" It's really filtered down. We set out for that young developing brain. Youth was our passion when we started, and we thought, "Hey, when moms are involved in the decision making, this is a, well, no pun intended, but a no-brainer."
Right.
And, we thought that was the way, and it wasn't. It wasn't until the NFL started, releasing information about the cap that it started filtering down more and more and more. It's more of a top-down approach, I think.
Yeah, and they're on TV, right? And people see it and
Yeah,
they're like, "Oh, these players are wearing it," and
right.
so, yeah,
Yeah,
from
we we're
wait, what was that?
we're in Madden this year. The
Yeah,
ga the so that was
so
that was a big win.
that's a big, big win.
Yeah.
So from my perspective as a surgeon and an athlete myself, availability is everything. So I really see Guardians work, to support athlete longevity, the confidence on the field. That's a big deal. And that's everything we talked about. And when these coaches, like you said, moving from college to college or from team to team, and they're like, my athletes were more available, they were healthier.
Yes.
That's a
Yes.
big deal. And that's what sells it.
Yeah. Yeah. And participation rates have really gone up. I know the Falcons, Arthur Blank Foundation did a really cool grant program this year, and the Falcons matched it with their money, and they provided Guardian caps. I think it was 50 or 60 caps to every high school in the state of Georgia who wrote in for the grant program. And what we saw is the participation rates were way higher. I think they had an average of 15 more players sign up.
Hmm.
And, I think the parents feel better. I think the players feel better. So, I think that football has so many lifelong benefits. We just want them to play in a better way.
Yeah, I agree. Sports in general, right? And any of these
Yeah,
sports. So if we can
for
keep them
sure.
safe and keep them
Yeah,
that longevity is important, keep them on the field.
right.
What's been the biggest leadership lesson that, through Guardian's growth from the startup and, from your idea to this trusted name now in professional sports? What do you think's been the biggest leadership lesson?
I think just having confidence in the mission has been the biggest thing. I did not go to business school, so I think a lot of people think you have to have that sort of a background. I would say that raising 5 children probably prepared me more for the business world than anything. When you can navigate that much drama, you got it.
Yes.
You got it. It's a
Just
lot of
it's like
scheduling
you
and a lot of,
already have CEO experience.
you really do learn a lot. I think those life lessons carry over. Um, Lee and I felt that even if we were helping 100 children, that was something. So for us, it was just a leap of faith and a calling that someone should do something, and no one was stepping up to the plate. So, did it look funny? Yes, let's do it anyway. Is there going to be a personal cost to it? Yes, let's do it anyway. It's just really believing in the mission of what you're doing. And we feel like, we put our heads down and tried to do it responsibly, and, doors have opened. It's been a really cool journey.
Yeah, I think it makes it much more fun when your passion and your job line together, right? And I think
Yeah.
knowing what your why is and continuing to use that to motivate you each and every day.
Well, it's even more fun now that my kids have joined us. They all wanted to go out into the world on their own and prove themselves on their own first, which I admire. They said, "Hey, I don't want to just come and work for mom and dad." So we had 4 graduate from Georgia Tech, 1 graduated from Georgia State in accounting. So slowly we've got 3 of the 5, and then
You
2
do, okay.
sons-in-laws and 3 sisters. So it's just fun going to work every day.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a blast to do something with your kids and with your family that you feel very passionately about.
So inspiring. So, as a female leader and obviously a male dominated industry, what advice can you share with other innovators and other young women trying to break in?
I think that you have to know that there are definite differences, but you have to use those differences as your strengths. Lee comes to everything with a very great scientific background. And, he's very technical in his testing and, his data. And I came to it with a real passion to serve. And I think the two of us together make a great team. I have not felt unwelcome in any of the business environments. There may be very few females in the room, but what I found is that if you come prepared and you do your homework, people will listen. I think there's a lot of respect out there. So I haven't felt, I know a common narrative is that it's, impossible to break through, and I haven't found that to be true. I think that if you're prepared and you're doing something that makes a difference, people will make space for you.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. That's what I always tell my tell my residents and fellows and medical students who reach out about the same question.
Yeah. I mean, I have 4 daughters. You don't wanna tell your daughters, "Hey, you're gonna be bumping up against obstacles. This is nearly impossible, but do it anyway." That doesn't need to be the message. It's get your work done, put your head down, do the work, come prepared, and you can make a difference, and they have. So I tend to look at it from that perspective instead.
Great perspective. So looking ahead, what's next for Guardian, and are there any new sports, new technologies, partnerships on the horizon that you see?
Yeah, we have partnered with Sertor Sports, so they make the Vices and the Shed helmets. Great partnership. Just very much share the mission of really improving the player experience, player safety, and performance. And so we're working on some things together. That the new loop is partnered with them. So really excited to see what can happen when we combine our labs with their labs and our scientists with their scientists. So we're excited about that. We're working on a new baseball project that we're very excited about. So that's coming up.
You share with
TBD.
us?
Honestly, I guess I could share a little bit. We're working on reducing the impact of those balls coming off the bat that rebound off of a pitcher's cap. So I think we've got a great solution there. Oh, I forgot to talk about our chin strap.
Yeah.
Super pumped about that.
Yes.
So when the NFL released the data to say that, hey, our previous 3-year average was 23 concussions in practice, and we've reduced it down to 11, so it's a more than 52% drop in concussion rate. Even out of those that involve the Guardian cap, half of them were face mask to face mask. They didn't even touch the cap. So we said, how many hits overall are face mask to face mask instead of helmet to helmet? And they said, well, 50%. So we said, well, who's doing something about the face mask? And the answer was nobody really. And so we partnered with some really smart guys out of Stanford called Soft Shocks, and they have a new hydraulic technology, and we incorporated it into the chin strap. So it's the first safety chin strap out there. It looks like a camera, Robin, so hang on. It's
Yeah, it
actually,
does.
there's a liquid displacement in there. So if you push on the back, you can feel that liquid going
Oh,
from a
yeah.
wider to a smaller channel, and it reduces the harm, which is the algorithm they use, by about 36-38%. And so when you hit face mask, instead of everything hitting right in here, this reduces and slows that hit down, reduces that
It
impact,
disperses that force.
disperses that force. So super pumped. That is on. We saw a couple in NFL games this weekend. Of course, they didn't have the logo on them because we are not paying that kind of fee.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, I'm keeping an eye out for those. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
amazing. You guys
Yeah,
are
so
in
I'm really
everything.
excited about that. So hopefully we'll expand into lacrosse helmets and maybe hockey. I don't know, wherever chin strap is used. So we'll see what happens with that.
I feel like you're everywhere, and every
We
field, every
are.
sport, and
Lee's having a blast. He loves solving problems. And what's neat about being our age is that he has contacts literally everywhere. He did corporate America for a long time before we launched out on our own. And so he's got what used to be called a Rolodex. I don't know what the heck you call it in the digital. he's
it's
got,
really I
he's,
always call it the black book, the little black book or the Rolodex, but you're right.
he calls it the gray hairs and the no hairs.
I love it.
So he said, if I can't figure it out, I've got somebody who can. So we sit back and we listen, and we hear problems that are happening in sports, and we say, well, can we do something about that? Can we make it better? And so
So it's
that's
amazing.
the mission.
Really, I mean, you've kept that mission the whole time, and you've lived by it, and so passionate, and it's your passion is really, infectious, I must say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we have fun at what we do. That's for sure. We report our successes every year. Most people report in terms of revenue. We report in number of athletes served. So we look at the. I think every field that we cover with turf gets so many athletes. Every cap is 1 per 1. Every ball is like 1 for 5. It's a neat way to report success.
That's great. I love it. Erin, thank you so much for joining me on Blueprint of an Athlete. Your journey is really from this simple idea sparked from your concern for your children to leading a company that's redefining athlete safety at every level. It has been incredibly inspiring. And thank you again for your leadership and commitment to helping athletes play safer, stronger, and longer. So I guess they can learn more about the Guardian Sports, Guardian Cap, Loop, Chin Strap, and the lacrosse balls on guardiansports.com. Is that correct?
They can.
Okay.
And
Great.
we're
And
always
follow your
available
mission
for
on
phone
social media. Is that right?
Yeah, follow us on social media. Every channel's on the website, and give us a call if anybody wants to talk. We're always happy to answer the phone.
That's great. Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. Robin West. Join me next time as we dive deeper into the science of performance, recovery, and injury prevention. This has been Blueprint of an Athlete, where science meets sport.